Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with the full contingent today.
Dave.
Ryan.
Nate.
Today we have a viewer suggestion from Art Wood. He wants us to talk about Mutants and Masterminds. Apart from D&D, it's pretty much my favorite system to play with. What do you guys feel?
Okay, so right now we are in the third incarnation of the game, and basically one of the unique things that they did with Mutants and Masterminds was when they went into a new edition, one of the catalyst was they actually got the license from DC to use the DC universe, which is really cool. So there are 4 books that you can get: the Heroes and Villains Volumes 1 and 2, the Player's Handbook, and the DC Universe, right? Right there, that is 3rd edition Mutants and Masterminds in a nutshell. You don't actually need anything else to run it, and you can actually run it in DC Adventures.
Which is awesome.
But if you wanted something more generic, they do have 3rd edition soft cover. It's not bad.
With sort of like the archetypal, like, you have your Batman-esque character.
They do all the archetypes. So Mutants and Masterminds is a D20 system. That's one of the things that drew me to it. We had started playing a different Heroes game. There was some things that I felt were inconsistent.
Balance issues. And
I didn't like so much. So I started looking and doing some research, and I found 2nd edition Mutants and Masterminds, which we played for years.
Right. We
did all kinds of genres with it, different tropes.
we've played superheroes. I ran a Dresden game for a while.
We did fantasy.
We did a fantasy.
Yeah. So the thing about Mutants and Masterminds, it's a great system if you want a comic book feel. Mm-hmm. So it does kind of like lend itself towards that. When they went from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, a lot of what they did is take out the D&D isms. Mm-hmm. And tried to make it feel more like a more heroic, more of a supers game. Mm-hmm. And they did what every friggin' game has done so far with the skills from original 3.5.
Dumped them and consolidated.
And whittled them down. You oddly enough, you don't need a bunch of dice to play this game.
You only need a D20.
It's merely a D20.
Similar to that 20th level monk that you played in 3rd edition. All you need of that D20. Well, same thing as here, except you only, regardless of the level of your character, you just need the one die.
There's no classes,
and that is one of the things that appeals to me the most. It becomes a trap because if you're not careful and streamlined with a character concept, you could fall into that, well, I want everything, and you then have a character that sucks because you're not good at anything.
Right, and it just seems kind of weird.
Well, he's a generalist, and you want your suite of powers to kind of play into one thing. Like,
right.
So.
And, I've run a few Mutants and Mastermind games on online, and when meeting with players to talk about them, some people have said, I want to be able to do this, I want to be able to do that, and they build a character without an overarching theme. And I think when you're making an M&M character, you want that theme first, you want that concept, and then be able to tie everything to that as opposed to just picking and choosing.
They do kind of make it easy for you because in the Player's Handbook they have archetypes,
right? And
basically, the powerhouse, the energy controller,
the gadgeteer,
the mentalist. So it kind of like shows you how to build the character.
Right.
There is a level system, but it's not what you're used to if you play D&D. Your power level is basically what your GM is saying. That's the level of the game. The scope of the game. Yeah, the scope of the game, and that determines when you build your character how many points you have, because it's all point by.
Like level 6 through 8 would be like your
street level,
your low power type stuff, which is where I ran the Dresden stuff. 10th level is where you have your your superheroes. 15th level is kind of like your cosmics.
Yeah, Silver Surfer.
Yeah, teleporting across the universe. That kind of stuff.
Your Silver Surfer, your Green Lantern, your Superman. Superman might even be a little bit higher than 15. But that's the scope of your games, and you can build anywhere in those type of situations. But beyond the scope of the game, it also sets the level for the GM, DM to be able to say, well, this is what my players are essentially capped out at, and thus they can set their threat levels accordingly.
That's one of your favorite parts about the game.
That I do love, because then I know that I've got this teeter-totter scale that I can play with, and I don't need to worry about anything else, because I know what the players can do. The players have a base idea of what the villains are going to be at. They might be a little bit more powerful than you, but not immensely so.
Well, that's not true. I mean, it could be Galactus.
No, that's true. My first and foremost love of this game comes from the visualization that anything that you want to do visually, you can just do. Like, there's no you need to have the power in order to be able to do something, but
how it looks is
completely up to you.
Or if it's a type of energy, you just call it this type of energy. It's fire, it's plasma.
Right.
The question is, do you have are you taking a blast ranged attack, or are you punching people or swinging a sword?
So
or something?
a melee attack would be your strike or your damage power, and however you want it to look, you can make it look. If you're attacking someone ranged, it's just blast, and you describe it.
Is it a gun or a ray? Or
right.
whatever.
My love of D&D, I've always loved playing, unique and interesting races. So if you want to play a Minotaur, you typically have to sacrifice something to be able to play this huge monstrous creature. In Mutants and Masterminds, they don't care about anything like that.
You just build it.
You just build it, and visually is meaningless, and that is so awesome to me.
Well, so I did look it up. Superman is a power level 15 character. Yep.
So
Curious.
What it is, it's an effect-based system, and that's what Ted was really basically just describing. So, like, what you do is you decide the effect you want to produce, and then you add a descriptor to it to describe how it happens. Your power level is like in your D&D games is your bonuses to hit or your ability to not be hit, and that's set by the power level of the game. So if you're playing a power level 10, which is your standard game, then you can expect to be at around 10 for most things.
Right.
Now there's a sliding scale where you can make that go up and down. Or you might want to just be good at more things, so then you won't have as many points to do the balancing act.
Right.
So, with all that being said, it's a little weird to grasp the combat in Mutants and Masterminds, because it's kind of a little bit of a roll-off.
Yes, there's I rolled a hit, you roll to see, like, I roll versus your armor class. If I hit, I have a set damage. You then roll to see, did I actually hurt you? So I roll to attack. If I hit your armor class, you're going to roll your toughness to see if you've been hurt. And depending upon, how much you succeed, you could either not take any damage whatsoever, or you could just totally be knocked out of the combat.
Yeah, you could go down in one swing.
So that is the one thing that is, that is bad about the system. I had, a dinosaur shape-shifting character in, one of Dave's first Mutants and Mastermind games, and I was flying around as a pteranodon, and I got shot out of the air. I totally went unconscious. Oh, I'm unconscious, so therefore I can't stay as a dinosaur, so I revert to a human and fall to the ground. It was not a good day for Jurassic.
Did you spend the rest of the campaign in the hospital?
I didn't spend the rest of the campaign in the hospital, but I definitely was out of the rest of that fight.
Yeah. Did you hit the ground or somebody save you? I think someone tried to save you.
I'm not certain whether I was saved or whether I hit the ground. I just it was a while ago, but I definitely recall, that was it for me for that combat.
Yeah. Was that the same game that I played Twitch?
I forget who you were in that game. Like I said, it's been a while.
It was the Super Speedster with Tourette's, the Gadgeteer Super Speedster with Tourette's syndrome.
You might have been there for for the beginning of that campaign, because that was just before you left for New Mexico.
Yeah.
So the thing with Mutants and Mastermind is, I think there's a trap in the combat. If you get into that trap of not describing the action, what's going on, it's real easy to go, okay, -1 the toughness.
Yeah.
Your toughness is like your hit points in this game.
Right.
and you don't actually get very many of them. so they can be whittled down, but it means something different. And there's also
so is toughness like the super stat in this game, like the uber stat that kind of supersedes all others?
It is. It's like dexterity in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And because the problem is, as your toughness goes down, it's easier to then affect you.
Yeah, I would almost say, like, depending on the level of the game you're running, as GM of this, you may want to put a cap of, like, you can only spend X amount on your toughness.
At a power level 6 game, you could say at most you could have a 0 AC and a 12 toughness, and that's the most that you can do because of, as I said, that teeter totter. Your to hit and damage are on this balance scale, which at its even at a 6. If you want to increase your to hit, you have to lower your damage, and vice versa. You can lower your hit to increase your damage, but together they can't exceed 12. The same thing with your armor class and toughness. They're on even. They're at 6s. If you want to lower your armor class to increase your toughness, you can do it. And there's definitely a trap of, well, I want a high armor class or a high toughness. If you play too much with them, it's gonna be an issue. If you're hit all the time, the chances are you're gonna have those lower numbers.
But if your toughness is high enough, you might be able to always absorb the damage.
That's what vulnerability is for.
If you're hit all the time, your likelihood of rolling those ones on your toughness save goes up. But if your armor class is so high, that bad guy's going to roll that natural 20 and hit you, and with that super low toughness score, you're done. So it's an ugly situation, and you really need to work with your GM to make sure that he's happy with where you're at and you're happy with where
I like any game that lets you play Dresden Files as RPG. So any system that lets you do that kind of customization is really cool. That's like my one aspect of why I don't like Mutants and Masterminds is that toughness. I just don't like that whole aspect of it. And
some people just want to do hit point damage.
No, it is not even that. I actually don't like how the mechanic can. I don't like the mechanic. It has nothing to do with hit points. I don't like the mechanic and how to abuse it. But I like the rest of the game, and I will play the game because I like the game. And I just don't get into how much I don't like a certain aspect of it.
Okay.
That's
Right.
all.
Well, so the basics, right? Let's cover the basics real quick. Pretty much, you have stats are very similar to D&D. Matter of fact, in second edition, they were the exact same.
With third edition, they split dexterity up into ranged combat and agility. So you literally have dexterity and agility, and you also have fighting, which is your ability in melee combat.
Right, and along with a bunch of other stuff, but I'm not going to break down each one. I just want to give them a basic overview.
Sure.
Your stats are going to be similar to D&D. Second edition, they're exactly the same. You have defense scores instead of saving throws.
Correct.
So they're to hits instead of rolling to avoid. Then you have skills very much like
third or fifth, and they're.
I was just going to come back to that. Just the static numbers. It's what fourth edition did for saving throws back in the day. Well, back in fourth edition,
right? And then they went back to a saving throw system that was
more player being active than enemy being active.
Yes,
kind of thing. So.
Then you also have your powers, which is for most characters that's going to be where the majority of your points are spent. That also is going to fall into where you have your gadgets or your armored suits and that kind of stuff.
It's going to be your special abilities like your class features from D&D. But you also have advantages, which they were actually called feats in second edition.
Right.
Mutants and Masterminds. So
they were kind of rebranding and trying to make it its own thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what they did. They made it its own thing. They made it feel more like.
And a lot of your third edition feats do exist, in the system.
Right, in its own way.
And then some of them are almost like minor powers unto themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And some of them duplicate, powers. It's like, you get this, this thing here with this little drawback or, in its infantile state.
And then advancement in Mutants Mastermind is there's no experience system. There's no leveling up per se. If you're at if it's a power level 10 game, it stays that until your GM decides to up it.
Right.
Which he may or may not. But what you do get is you get power points when you complete sessions. And you only ever get 1 or 2 of them that you can then put back into your character build to increase his abilities, expand them, become more powerful.
Develop new powers.
Sometimes you can develop new powers. And sometimes, since you're only getting one or 2 at a time, you might have to
hold on to them for a while.
Yeah, you might have to pull them for a while in order to get what get the power.
You gotta save it. You gotta bank it for that thing.
And that is a coming from an experienced player, is one of those things that you really have to figure out what you're planning to do, because you can fall into a trap of I
want to spend it.
I want to spend it. But the I want to save it could be a trap as well, because if everyone else is building up their character and you're holding on to a store of points, it's like, I could be in a bad situation. Whereas if I would have, upped something or bought this new power, even at a weaker state,
you could have prevented yourself from dying,
right.
Perhaps. Yeah. And what about, what is it, the flaws system?
The
drawback? Or
they had flaws in 2nd edition, which is basically you could buy flaws to get points, which they got rid of it because for
people
a good
were
reason.
Abusing it.
It's easy to abuse, and then you're coming up with all these crazy flaws that you then try and work around
just to get points so that you can be more powerful. I like the 3rd edition situation better. Where, as opposed to, let me have flaws for points, you have to have a minimum of 2 drawbacks.
Complications.
Complications, that's the verbiage, yeah.
And if your complication comes up, you get a hero point. And a hero point is kind of like a inspiration or a lucky situation where you can use your inspiration or your hero point to either get a reroll, edit the scene, or
access a power.
It's kind of got a little bit of that fate thing of invoking a flaw or whatever. So the cool thing about this is, like, you take Spider-Man, for instance. You say, like, my complication is, I have to protect Aunt May. Well, as the player, you can be like, oh, crap, Aunt May's there, I see her, so this is my complications, I have to look out for her. So, like, you can kind of take on that hero point and draw, but now your character has to deal with her being in the scene and anything that could potentially happen to her.
Yeah, you can definitely have more...
invoke your own sort of complications.
More agency. I don't think it's quite as poignant as a fate system.
Yeah, it's
but
not
there's aspects of it there.
It's not as free as Fate or I say Dungeon World, where you have the ability to really edit things that much. But it's definitely more free form than Dungeons and Dragons. As you said, you have to be more verbal and narrative with what you're doing to really make it come alive.
Well, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, when it just boils down to rolling dice, isn't really that inspiring either. So, like, if you're not describing the action, it's just
it's like that, but only worse.
Yeah, it's worse here because when you do 17 damage, when you attack the creature, everyone knows you did damage, whereas you attack the guy and he makes his toughness save, or he takes a minus, to his toughness save, it's not as dramatic because the numbers are so much smaller. You're not getting as big an impact because realistically, getting staggered, stunned, and a -1 to toughness is the best that you can really do. Unless you're totally just knocking them out or killing them with that one strike.
Describe the comic panel in which the impact is happening. Like, imagine what that comic scene would look like, and try to.
So, as a DM or as a player, you need to be more narrative as to what your actions are, and whatnot, or it's going to seem a little dry, a little dull.
Yeah.
So me and Ted have the most experience running the game, and everyone else here has played the game. And like Ted said, next to Dungeons and Dragons, it's one of my go-to games that I greatly enjoy. And we'll try and do some more videos. Maybe we'll spend a little more prep time, make them a little more concise. You were a little bit all over the place.
Yeah. This is an overview. We'll call it an overview.
I will say, as we said, we're going to talk about superheroes and about Dresden. The actual core mechanics of Mutants and Masterminds is open enough that you really can do any type of game. In this,
I really wanted to run, if I could ever have the time for it, a Roaring 20s street level superhero game. Like I think I've told you guys about this.
Absolutely.
Like Gangland Chicago sort of, but with superheroes.
You could run steampunk. You could run a post-apocalyptic. Everything really fits into the rule setting. It's just a matter of what power level, what
super sandboxy.
What power limits the GM is going to put on there. Because as a GM in this world, you absolutely have to be able to look at every character and approve or disapprove certain things, because if you have I'm running this kind of level game and someone says, oh well, I'm going to do this, well, it might not fit well in your setting.
Hey, you got a toughness 18 there, buddy. That's when everybody else is like sitting at 11 or 12.
Yeah, that's that can
it
break
requires DM fiat quite a bit.
Yeah, so
hammer.
Hammer. you have to absolutely look at every single character before you run and be able to say, all right, I'm allowing this and I'm not allowing that. That's
the price of freedom.
Yeah, when you've got everything at your fingertips. If something is going to break your game, it's possible the player's going to choose that, possibly by choice, possibly by accident.
They just want to be a mini god, that's all.
Mini god.
Why can't they just transfer one thing to another? Like anything to anything. Why not?
One of my characters that I made was a forgotten god.
Well, there you go.
All right, so have we soared above the clouds of the common men with the superhero Mutants and Masterminds?
I believe we have.
I think we have.
So if you if you've got any questions for us about it, you can put in the comments below. If you've played and want to give feedback, put it there as well. While you're doing that, feel free to click like, share, even subscribe.
You can go visit us at Nerdarchy the Store. You can find that on the About section of our YouTube channel,
or you can go check us out at Facebook.
Let's join the conversation over on Reddit.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.